Hi, and welcome to Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 2. This is going to be a truly exciting chapter. It is, in fact, one of my favorites because Chapter 2 talks about perhaps the most important thing in the Bhagavad Gita that most fascinates me, and that is the soul. That is the beginning of the wisdom that Krishna gives to Arjun. They're in the battlefield. The battle is about to start. Arjun doesn't want to fight. That's the background, right? As we talked about earlier. But now there comes a time where Krishna begins to speak because Arjun has said to him, I'm confused. I am a soul surrendered unto you. Please guide me. I don't know what to do. I don't know what is right. I don't know what is wrong. And in that mode of surrender, Arjun now becomes receptive to what Krishna has to say. And Krishna begins with the following most amazing words. So I want you to kind of really focus in and pay attention to what he's saying here, because some of the stuff that is going to come up about the qualities of the soul and the nature of who we are is absolutely phenomenal. So Bhagavan is the term that refers to Krishna, Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And it means, as some would say, the supreme being, right? Bhagavan, that's the meaning of the word. And Bhagavan means one who possesses all knowledge, all fame, all beauty, all strength, and all renunciation. So basically it means that person who knows everything, who is everywhere, right? And many people have tried to call themselves Bhagavan over the ages, but this is not true. They do not know everything. They are not present everywhere. And they certainly cannot claim to be all-powerful, to own everything in the universe, and so on. Bhagavan refers to the supreme being or God. So Bhagavan Sri Krishna is speaking the Bhagavad Gita, and in that he makes the following statements. He says to Arjun, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. Wow. I mean, that is such a mind-blowing statement. Think about it. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. We, on the other hand, lament for both the living and the dead. We call that compassion, we call it empathy, we call it caring, and we call it attachment. But Krishna is speaking about the wise. The wise are those who are truly self-realized. They are self-realized because they know something that the rest of the world doesn't know. They know that this body is a temporary vehicle or dress that we are in. They know that this body is not the real self. They know that this is just a phase we're going through. Our true identity is spiritual, that we come into this world and we must leave this world. It is the natural course of things, like winter and summer seasons, right? It will happen to all of us. So the key for any human being is to understand that and prepare for that and get to know the most important question, which is, who am I? And that question is what brings us to understanding the soul. So let's go on and see what Krishna has to say here. He goes on to the next verse and he says here, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. I want you to really take a moment and think about these words. What would your life be like if you knew for a fact, and if you believed for a fact, that you were an immortal being, that you will not die? Never was there a time when I did not exist, Krishna says. Imagine that. Imagine being a being who has existed for millions of years. Millions of years. You have had so many different bodies, so many different incarnations, and you're here today one more time. And you will continue unless you're able to break out of this cycle of birth and death. And that's the big challenge in front of us. So he says, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, all the people who are assembled out there in the battlefield, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So what would your life be like if you knew that? Would you be hurrying around, scampering, and trying to get as much done as possible, trying to accumulate as much as you can, trying to achieve as much as you can? Or would you say, if that's the case, I have eternity on my hands. I need to know why I'm here. These are some of the questions I used to ask. Why am I here? What's this life all about? I can see that we're all going to die. I can see that we're going to leave everything behind. And as a kid, I was asking, so what is the point of life? What you're asking me to become something when I grow up, but I want to know this. What is this life all about? And people didn't have answers. So it's only when I came across the Bhagavad Gita that it all became really clear. So Krishna goes on further to explain. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. Whoa. All right, let's read that carefully. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body, right, from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. Now, I may not be self-realized, as Krishna is speaking of here, but I have spent almost 15 years of my life doing past life regression with people, and I have seen exactly what Krishna is talking about, how the soul in fact leaves the body, moves on to the light, and then comes back into another body. Again and again and again. We can trace your life back to when you were in the caveman lifetimes, or you can go to other different, countries that you lived in, other places that you were. It is fascinating to see. But what is more important is to realize that. To realize, if I am a spiritual being, then my anxieties, my worries, my depressions, my fears of old age or death, or what will happen if this or that or the other, are quite meaningless. Nothing has been able to destroy me. And that's the part Krishna is going to keep emphasizing here. So you'll see for yourself. He says here now, those who are seers of the truth, that is, those who have realized the truth, those who have attained that level of liberation from this world, or moksha, those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent there is no endurance, and of the existent there is no cessation. It sounds like he's talking in riddles, right? But no, he's not. The non-existent refers to the world, or Maya, or illusion, as we call it. The non-existent refers to that which is temporary. The Vedic philosophy and spirituality consider everything that is temporary to be unreal, or illusory, or Maya. And that is because it's all made of these atoms and protons in space coming together to create forms, and then these forms disappear. Even Einstein pointed that out. He said matter cannot be created or destroyed because basically it is energy. that energy, you can destroy the substance of it. You can, I mean, the thing you created, whether that's a table or a chair or whatever else, or a house, you can destroy that and it'll go back into the earth. It'll become energy all over again. So when you get that understanding, you understand that the temporary things have no endurance. The things of the world have no endurance. We want endurance, we want permanence, but the things of this world cannot give us that. And of the existent, he says, and of that which actually exists, which is spirit, which is the soul, which is God, there is no cessation. It will never cease. It will never stop. It will always exist. This seers have concluded by studying the nature of both. Right? So the Vedic society, they actually studied the nature of the soul, the nature of spirit, by observing, by going into meditation, by finding a deeper understanding of that which we are. The science of the self is what they explored, not just the science of matter. Then he goes on to say, that which pervades the entire body is indestructible. That which pervades the entire body refers to the soul. Its energy, its presence is felt throughout the entire body. In fact, we would not be able to, the body would not be able to move if it weren't for the presence of the soul. No one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. See, he says, no, that which pervades the entire body is indestructible. No one is able to destroy the imperishable. Take a minute here. Are you seeing the text straight up or upside down? Is it inverted? Oh, okay. On my screen it was coming that way. Okay, fine. All right, great. Let's continue. To be. So what would your life be like if you knew that? Would you be hurrying around to destroy the imperishable soul? So it's a phenomenal idea that our soul is imperishable. Imperishable. Nothing you do. If you have an accident, there's a nuclear bomb, nothing can kill the soul. Not fire, not water. He goes on to say that. I think we'll come to that part. But the point being that we are such powerful beings, and we do not know the beginning of our power. You see, because the ego is fragile, because the body is fragile, we're always afraid. We're always living in fear. We're always worried about what somebody said to us and what that means and what will happen if somebody leaves us and things like that. We're worried about if there is a famine or if there is, starvation or if there is a bomb or if there is a war, how are we going to survive? Right? Many people worry about these things and try to make all kinds of arrangements to be safe. And nothing wrong in being safe. We do have a body. It does need to be taken care of. We do have a mind. It does need to be handled. But at the core, once you get it, the soul is imperishable. It cannot be destroyed. That is the part to take home with you today and really, really get it. Krishna then continues. Only the material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is subject to destruction. So only the body dies, the soul never dies. For the soul there is never birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. He, I think, is just redundant here. It is more of the, there's certainly no gender to the soul, just a matter of the translation. For For the soul there is never birth nor death, nor having been, nor having once been, does it ever cease to be. It is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, undying, and primeval. It has existed from the beginning of time. It is not slain when the body is slain. So this is all part of Krishna's trying to let Arjun know that in this battlefield, yes, people will die. In this battlefield, all kinds of terrible things will happen. But there is eventually no one dies. Everyone lives forever. You will meet these people again. They will be back in your life. Right now, the Leela, the pastime, the need of the hour is to fight this battle, because these people are such that they have created havoc. They have created hell on earth. They have been, like you've seen with dictators like Hitler and with Mussolini and with so many of these people. They had to be removed. Stalin, they had to be removed. And it was only then that we could have peace. And the same thing keeps recurring from time to time when you start seeing either dictators or fanatics creating all kinds of havoc on the planet. It is then that the time comes they must be eliminated. And that's the war that was in. It is called a war of dharma, right? A war of righteousness, to bring back peace to earth. So the Bhagavad Gita is there in that context, and it brings to us a very powerful message that we cannot abuse this earth or this world. This was not created by us. We cannot abuse it, nor can we harm others. If we do, there will be consequences. So then Krishna goes on to describe something very fascinating. He refers to the soul just as we talk about wearing new clothes. He talks about the soul. He says, as a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, similarly, the soul accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Think about that. Just as you take off your clothes at night, and you put on your night clothes or whatever else, as you change from one outfit to another, the soul gives up an old and useless body, a body that is no longer functional. Maybe it's become sick, maybe it's in an accident, maybe it's somehow become too old and no longer functional. And it moves on from there to take on a new body. You are given unlimited chances to be in this world and to explore whatever you want to explore, to do whatever you want to do, to be whatever you want to be. But even as you do all of that, the aim, the hope, the intention behind this world is that you will begin to seek that which you are and that which you came from, to discover, having all the options, having tried everything in the world, having tried to be rich and famous and having had everything in the world and enjoyed all the pleasures, to come back to the understanding of, who am I really? To find out the real self. Is it my mind? Is it my body? Or is there something else? And that understanding is the point of human existence. Everything else ultimately is a waste of time. Once you realize this, you realize everything else was futile. Everything else was vanity, as it says in the Bible. So you'll find that there is such a beautiful message in here, that just as we give up old and useless clothes, the soul gives up an old and useless body, and therefore there is nothing to lament. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. The individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burned nor dried. It is everlasting, all-pervading within the body, and unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. Now think about it. We all want a sense of constancy, a sense of things being the same. We look for sameness in the world. We try to create safety. We try to create security. But we're never able to achieve that. Things are never the same. Things are constantly changing. And yet, the soul, as Krishna describes it, is unchangeable and eternally the same. Is it possible, therefore, that what we've been longing for all this time is the soul, is who we are? And who we are is the doorway to who is God, because it's the beginning. When you begin to understand the soul, you begin to understand God. You have the first experience. Have you ever encountered your soul? That's a great question to have. I think that all of us have. At some time or other, we've come across this presence of our soul. And having come across it, we didn't know why we were feeling the way we were feeling, suddenly feeling happy for no reason at all. Maybe you're just out in nature. Maybe you're having a walk. Maybe you thought it's the place. Maybe you thought it's the person you met. Maybe you thought it's just, the season or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, there are those times in our life where we have felt as if time stopped. We have felt expansive. We have felt peaceful and calm. Every one of us has had those moments. I know it. Talked to thousands of people, and I know this to be true. Those are the moments where you began to feel the presence of your soul. Now, it can be felt, and it can be experienced, and it can become the center of your life. That's what it means to be self-realized. To be realized in the self means to live from the self, from the soul, not from your mind, as most of us live. So that's going to be the journey of the Bhagavad Gita, and that's the direction in which we're headed. Krishna continues here. He says, "For one who has taken his birth, death is certain, and for one who is dead, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament." He's talking to Arjun about that. "All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when they are annihilated. So what need is there of lamentation?" So let's go over that for a moment. When he says here that all beings are unmanifest in the beginning. So we come as spiritual beings into the womb of our mother. So we are unmanifest. Then we come into the womb of our mother, and we then take birth. And now we are manifest, and others can see us. And then when we die, the soul leaves the body, and we are unmanifest again. So we constantly go back into this, through this loop of being manifest and unmanifest. Therefore, he says all created beings are unmanifest in the beginning, manifest in the interim stage, and unmanifest again when they are annihilated. So what need is there of lamentation? Some look at the soul as amazing, some describe it as amazing, and some hear of it as amazing. And others, even while hearing about it, cannot understand it at all. This soul, as I was saying earlier, is something we have all felt and experienced. The idea now is to deepen that experience, to make it an intrinsic part of your life so that you can live a deeply spiritual life. That's what it means, spiritual. Spirit, actuality. To actualize your spirit, to actualize your soul. That's how I see it. So, and with that in mind, let's consider some of the lessons that we've learned here. The Bhagavad Gita is teaching us that we are spiritual beings, that we are souls, that we come into this world for a short while, and then we give up the body after some time. Remember, the body was not created by you or me. The body was not even created by our parents. It just happens within the womb of the mother, but it's not created by the mother. I mean, she is the bearer of the child. She holds the child, and in her body everything is happening, but it is happening not by her direction. It is happening by the direction of Prakriti or nature, and that nature is under God. So it is through that the whole body is formed, and when the end of this life, this body is taken away when it's no longer useful. This knowledge has a lot of implications, and I would like you to really meditate on it, to really begin to think about, if I am a spiritual being, if I am a deathless being, can I begin the journey to overcome the greatest fear of all, and that is of death? Can I begin to overcome the fear of survival? Instead of living from a place of survival and safety and so on, can I start to elevate my consciousness to a place where I understand who I really am? And once you realize this part of us is so exquisitely beautiful. Krishna has mentioned some of the qualities, but I'd like to add a few more in there. I would say that the soul, the first encounter we have with the soul, and if you like to do an experiment, you could just close your eyes, take a deep breath, and if you spend a few moments within yourself, you'll experience a feeling of peacefulness. That peacefulness is coming from your soul. Every time you go back there, take a deep breath, turn your attention inwards, you will experience peace. That is the first quality of the soul that you're coming in touch with. As you stay there longer, you'll notice it has other qualities. It is gentle, it is kind, it is loving, it is compassionate, naturally. It is unconditionally loving. It is eternally loving. It is not something that is just for a moment. It's not a fling. It's not a fly-by-night. It is always that. That's just how its nature is. Just like fire is hot, water is wet. The soul is eternal. It is full of bliss and it is full of wisdom. And beyond that, it has got so many other qualities. I'd love for you to spend time with that inner self of yours, to take time to really feel into it. And maybe in a journal, write down, what are the qualities of your soul? What do you feel and experience when you are in a state of no mind, when you are blank in your head and you're just feeling and experiencing that which lies within you? I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Hey, welcome back. Do you hear me? Hello? Yes. Okay, good. Thanks. So, what are your thoughts? What are your questions? I'd love to hear. Yeah, yeah. Isn't that, it just brings you into a different place. In this world, I think, where we've been living with the idea that this is all we've got, and you've got one life is all you got, and then everyone's trying to make the most of that life. And therefore, there's very little peace when you're trying to be that way. But when you realize, hey, this is just one of my many lifetimes. Like, I've had millions of lifetimes. This is just one of them. And I need to take the time to enjoy the journey, to enjoy the experience, to learn the things that are coming my way. So I think, once we do that, we're really starting to take advantage of the human form of life. And taking advantage of the human form of life, there's one big blessing to that, is that when you take advantage of the human form of life, you are guaranteed to come back as a human being. Those who don't use the human life for spiritual growth, according to the Bhagavad Gita, then they go back into the other species of life. Because if you're not going to use it, you might as well lose it. Right? So it's a very simple understanding. And it talks about how eternal life is happening right here and now. People in other religions will talk about, I want eternal life. Oh no, eternal life is happening here and now. And this life that is happening here and now can be heaven and it can be hell. For one who is self-realized, for one who has learned to overcome their mind, it will be heaven. And for one who has failed to overcome their mind, it will be hell. And this training is unfortunately not given to us. But this is where it begins. With the Bhagavad Gita, it really lays the foundation. And then, of course, is your practice of meditation. Then begins your practice of so many different things that are talked about out here that allow you to now get into that flow of life. Thanks, Swati. Does anyone else have a question? Got Vibha, we've got Juhi, did you have any questions that you'd like to ask? You'd have to unmute yourself and turn on the video. Uh-huh. What is that? Now, yeah, just turn on the videos while you're talking. Mhm. Mhm. Exactly. Yes. Yes. Hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about fear. That's such an important topic you're bringing up. The very fact that we are eternal beings brings us to a place where we can start looking at things differently. It doesn't end the journey, it begins the journey, right? So, what does that mean? Um, the fact that we are eternal beings means that we have got time. We are not in a world that is going to crush us, is not going to destroy us. We're not, this is not the only chance we have. If we mess up, we live in a compassionate universe. That's the first thing to understand. This is not a heaven or hell universe. This is not a place where if you mess up, you're damned and now that's it. No, this is a compassionate universe. Even the worst of human beings or people or whatever get repeated chances to reform themselves. Then, when it comes to fear, real fear is actually, like you said, it is embodied within us. It is something that is in our mind, it is in our body, because our mind and body are fragile and they can and will be destroyed in time. So, we are certainly worried about that, right? We are, um, let me get back over here. Yeah, we are worried about that because we have this part of us, the human part of us, is certainly um, got every reason to be fearful, right? Something could kill this body, something could, this mind could be attacked by something. You could have someone insult you, could have someone say something abusive to you, and now suddenly you're feeling all hurt and angry and upset, and yeah, so therefore we live in fear. What starts to happen is this: when you shift your perspective, see, the first thing is you think of yourself as your body or as your mind or both. And when you live from that place, the world is fearful. When you shift the perspective and you say, okay, I have a body, I have a mind, right? And it's not that, yes, my body might get hurt. Yes, my mind might get hurt. But I can look at that part of me and I can be there to console it. In other words, it's like having an elder brother or a mommy or a daddy or someone living with you. It's like having someone very powerful living with you while you're still this fragile being. So we have within us both sides, the perfect and the imperfect, the destructible human part and the indestructible soul part. And the idea is to integrate these two, to bring these two together, to work as a team, so that it's not that we're just human or we're just spiritual, because you can't be either one of the two, not unless you leave the body, then you can be all spirit. But as long as you're here, you need the conjunction of both. And that is the most important part. Actually, the Bhagavad Gita is not so much about giving up the world, but is learning how to live in the world, but not be affected by the world. To not let it get to you, to not be, primarily to not be living in fear. I think that is one of the biggest life lessons that we can get. Fear is what actually destroys everything. It's what leads to conflicts. It's what leads to arguments. We think, oh, we're trying to be righteous, but actually we're being fearful. If you're not fearful of someone trying to, let's say, silence your voice, if you're not fearful of someone trying to overpower you, then you wouldn't matter. You want to say something, say something. You're not fearful about your ego getting crushed. You don't care then. If someone abuses you or says something to you, yeah, it's their stuff. They don't know who I am. They never met me. They've never come across the real me. So, right? Thanks for asking. That was a great question. Anyone else? Craig? Vibha? What do you think of the soul? What are your conceptions? What have you learned? What have you experienced more than that? Have any of you had an experience of your soul? A moment where time stopped? A moment where you felt, there was just nothing mattered, nothing bothered you. Do you ever have a moment like that? What was it like? I can see some of you nodding away. What was that moment like? A moment where, you felt free. What was that like for you? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so peaceful, and it's very freeing. And once you learn how to get there, keep coming back. Keep coming back. Because the more you come back, the easier the pathways get. The easier it becomes to keep on connecting with that part of you. The more you keep on connecting with yourself, the more you'll find that it becomes easier and easier and easier. It's just amazing to do that. Now, many of you might think, oh, I've never really gone there. But think of the time where I'll give you so many examples when you're in nature. Okay? Think of the time you kiss someone, maybe the first time. Think of the time where you just, suddenly stepped out in the day and you just took a deep breath and everything just felt right with the world. Maybe 99% of the time it doesn't. Maybe 99.9% of the time it doesn't. But there might be those 0.1% of times where it did. And ask yourself, what were you doing at that time? Where were you? What were you doing? Do you know? Yeah, you can stay muted. You can go off your video. Only when you're asking to speak, you can. I need you to come back up with a video and your audio. Only when you're speaking. Yep. So if you have a question, yes. If you want to share something, yes. Pardon? Sleeping? Ah, okay. You're not aware. Right. So what's going on in your sleep, though, is more of the subconscious mind taking over now. And it's starting to come up with various images and stuff like that. It's not quite what happens when you're in meditation. It's not quite what happens when you're in a place where the mind is still. That's very different. Now, there are times where you're in your sleep and you you're not having dreams at all. There's nothing going on. There is that point of deep sleep as well. But at that point too, it's not the same. That's not quite the soul. You're not quite feeling, because there's a deep feeling of peacefulness that comes with the soul. And that's the part you want to pay attention to. Yes. For this world, meaning no. To know how to lift out of this world, how to take off, how to lift up from this world and be able to enter into a different dimension. That's the idea. Not really, no. You could no. Some people have experiences of lifting up above, yes. But know this, that when you're in contact with your soul, you will experience some of its qualities. A deep feeling of peace is perhaps the initial feeling. Then will come feelings of expansiveness and feelings of connectedness with everything, feelings of being in love with everything. These are the feelings that come about. Now, we get glimpses of this from time to time. Sometimes you fall in love with someone, and that's the first time you get that glimpse. But the point being that it doesn't have to be limited to that. It can be at any. Once you train yourself, you can go there at will. You can feel in love all the time, no matter what, whether you have somebody in your life or not. It doesn't matter. Yes, that wonderful feeling, comes by connecting with your soul, by learning how to see the world through those eyes. What has happened when you fall in love with suddenly all your criteria are met, you think you've met the perfect person, at least in those initial stages. And at that point, your mind just goes peaceful, because now it's like, oh, I've arrived. I'm good, right? This is it. And it quiets down. In that quieting down, you begin to feel very peaceful. It's like you feel the sense of being connected to everything. You feel like you're in love with everything. You feel the presence of something beautiful everywhere. Everything looks beautiful to you. That is because you've connected with your soul. Then comes so we say soulmate, it's a wrong idea. You connect with another person, and now their stuff comes in, their mind comes in, their ego comes in, their issues come in. They bring their entire lifetime's baggage with them, and suddenly we go, oh my God, what have I suddenly done? What have I got into? Right? So that's suddenly the whole picture changes. Connection, yes. Not only with yourself, with everybody else, and everything around you, correct? Yes. It's an incredible feeling of connection. It's a feeling of being high for no reason. That's another way of putting it. Yes, it's a practice through meditation, exactly. Yep. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Craig, any thoughts? Are you there, or was there a problem? Okay, I'll let someone else come on in the meantime. Vibha, any thoughts? Okay. So just so you know, we're continuing. We finished the. Okay, Craig's mic is not working. All right. And others are also just absorbing. All right, lovely. Thank you so much. So today we've covered half of the second chapter, and next time we're going to cover the second half. In the second half, we're going to talk about the qualities of an evolved being, and that's one of the second part of the second chapter. So that Krishna goes into that in great detail as well, because we need to be able to discern what is a person who is an evolved being. Is it just because they wear robes or this or that? If they called a guru, is that person? Or are there certain symptoms that we can look to? So that's what's going to be coming up next. The discussion about the soul is actually extremely fascinating, because you'll not find this really anywhere else. There is no other scripture in the world that really talks about the nature of the soul, whereas the Vedic culture, they actually spent a lot of time in meditation, researching, studying the nature of the soul. We're unfortunately in this world so preoccupied with the outer world, so preoccupied with our thoughts, so preoccupied with our emotions, that we don't stop to look at who is the one that is having the thoughts, who is the one that is having the emotions, who is the one that is observing this world, who is behind the scenes. Because if you think about it, if I have a mind, if I have a body, then who am I? I am the owner of this mind, owner of this body. So what are my qualities? I've never met me. And the people I know who say they love me, who are related to me, who are my friends, who are my family, they haven't met me either. They don't know who I am either. And so this becomes a very puzzling kind of situation, because we're living in this illusion, right? Krishna is saying of that which is the temporary, the stuff of this world, is an illusion. So think of it like waves on the ocean. The waves come and then they go. They come and then they go. The waves are not the ocean. Not at all. The ocean is much deeper, much bigger, much vaster than the waves. We are like waves on the ocean of consciousness. And as we begin to discover who we really are, we find that we are that vast ocean. Not to say that we are God, though you could say that and you could not say that. It would be true and it would be false at the same time. It means that we are one with, and that's what Chuhi was pointing out, that we are one, that sense of connectedness. We are one with all that is, and yet we are different. We are simultaneously one with creation and separate from it. That's the beauty. We are interconnected to everything that is going on out here. See, sometimes we get really upset about all the crazy stuff that's going on in the world, and we think like, why is this bad stuff happening, like in Russia, in Ukraine and all this stuff. And true, but the fact of the matter is, look at it, it's been happening since time immemorial. It's been happening again and again and again. We've never had a time, we might have had a few years of peace and then it's back again. We might have one area that's in, some areas that are in peace and other areas that are in conflict. This has been the nature of the world. So unless we understand something beyond this world, we don't have perspective, we don't have distance, we don't have a way to look at this world other than as victims of it, other than as helpless creatures stuck over here, and therefore fear. But when you see it from a bigger perspective, that this is all part of a lila or a story or a game that is going on, then you begin to realize, okay, it's terrible, it's painful, it's horrible, and yet it's part of the illusion. It's part of that whole game, that whole story that is trying to tell us something very important. That something is, wake up, wake up. Wake up from this dream that you're in, this life that you take to be so real. Wake up and try to find the real self. Try to find where you came from. What is your origin? What is the source of everything? Try to get to that place. And then nothing of this world will bother you. Then you will be free. The idea is not to go to some heaven and be free. The idea is to be right here and find heaven in this place, right here. That is the challenge in front of all of us. See, Krishna says here in this one, the last verse we read, he says, others, even after hearing about it, cannot understand it at all. There is a reason why they're not able to understand it, because in fact, indeed, you cannot understand the soul. No matter how much you try to apply your intelligence and your intellect, no matter how brilliant and why, and whatever you might be, you still cannot understand the soul. The soul is beyond the understanding of the mind. It must be experienced. It must be felt. It must be known in a whole different way. That cannot be done using the normal instruments of perception that you've been using all along. It's a different journey altogether. It's an inner journey in which you experience this inner world. And in that inner world now you're able to really understand, oh, this is beautiful inside here. Oh, this is so exquisitely delightful. I want to keep coming back here more and more and more. And you become addicted to that inner world. You become literally like someone who is not interested in anything else. And then a sort of detachment occurs from the world. And it comes naturally. It's not a sense of trying to give up anything, but it's that nothing else really matters. Nothing matters except that sweet, beautiful presence that lies within you. It lies within all of us. It's not just me or some other person, but it's in all of us. And all of us have access. But to get there, you have to quiet this. You have to quiet the mind. It's not possible to get there without that. So that is it's like in the story of, what does he call it? The hero's journey, right? Joseph Conrad, he talks about the hero going to this cave, and the cave is guarded by these dragons, and the dragons, the hero has to learn how to slay the dragons, and only then can he enter the cave and find the treasure. So similarly, we have to slay the dragons of our mind, the voices, the critical, stuff that goes on in our head. And only when we're able to stop that, we're able to shut it down, then we're able to enter into the inner recesses of this cave, our inner being, and discover who we really are. But it begins with just learning to observe your thoughts. Even if you just observe them and label them, just label them as, let's say, thinking, even that much. Oh, thinking. Another thought comes by, thinking. It could be a thinking angry thought, or it could be, kind thought. I don't know, just thinking. The more you realize you're thinking, the more you snap out of the illusion of your mind, or the control, of your mind. You're able to snap out of it because now you are watching it. And when you are watching it, you're no longer in it. You have now come outside and you're watching what it's doing, like you're watching people walking by on the street. So you sit on a cafe and you're watching people walking by on the street, and you notice someone's with a baby and someone's with a partner and someone is busy going off to the office. You're just watching different people going by, right? Ever done that? People watching? It can be fun. And the same way, you can watch your thoughts going by. And to each of them, you give it a little tag. And as you tag them, now you've become the observer. You're no longer in it. You have stepped out of it. And later on, at some point, turn the camera back on yourself, the camera of your mind, the camera of your awareness, I don't mean your mind, your awareness back onto yourself, and notice who's watching. That's the beginning of a very fascinating journey. That's where you begin to get in touch with your soul. And then you begin to study the qualities of the soul and its nature. All right, I think we'll end over here today. And unless if somebody does have a last question before we end, anyone? There's no hurry. If you've got something on your mind, let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. Well, okay. I think that takes us back to the beginning. That takes us back to the beginning. Pardon? Oh, No, 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 no. I don't mean the beginning of today. I mean the beginning of our life, and I mean the end of our life. And we take a look at what happens when we are born. Unless something enters within the womb doesn't start to. I mean, the womb is there. Every woman has a womb. She might have sex with someone, but it doesn't mean the baby is going to actually form. Right? That takes a certain something happening. We have all the physical explanation for it. We have the biological explanation for it, but we don't have the spiritual explanation for it. The spiritual explanation is that the soul needs to enter that body, just like electricity entering the light bulb. And then that body starts to take shape and take form. Otherwise, it will not take shape, it will not take form. When we die, similarly, the soul leaves the body, and nothing anyone does at that point will bring the soul back. If the soul does come back, as we've seen in near-death experiences, then what is discovered is that they actually describe where they went and what happened and so on. It's happened thousands of times in hospitals, and doctors have heard the stories. Some of them have actually taken the trouble to note them down, like Raymond Moody did a series of experiments back in the 70s. And there's a book by Raymond Moody about near-death experience studies that he did. But many doctors take it to be just something they're making up. Now people have come up with theories about how it's just chemicals in the brain firing off and stuff like that. But the reality is every single person is having this experience. And not only that, when we regress them in regression, we see the same experience happening as well. Yeah, it's so weird. I've just gone pause altogether. I have no idea what happened here. Okay. Okay, let's see. We've got something running here. And okay. So, yeah, I'm not sure why the camera froze there, but something happened. um, so we think about what our life is. What makes this body move and what makes it stop moving. And it's then that we realize the soul is energy, just like electricity entering a light bulb, just like gasoline in a car. It is energy that makes this body move. Otherwise, it would not move. Right? It would just drop dead. So that's the difference between a living body and a dead body, is the presence of the soul. And one might argue, well, I don't know, this, that, but then tell me, what makes the organs, everything is there in the dead body. The person, let's say, just died, right? And they're declared dead because their heart stopped pumping. Okay, what made the heart stop pumping and why was it pumping earlier? Like, nobody's got that answer. Until you have that answer, unless you can actually make it pump without that life force and you can make it pump indefinitely, then this remains the most solid explanation. And again, consider another thing. There is, because these ideas come from people who actually don't believe there is either a soul or that there is a God or there is any intelligence behind the universe. The reality is that the universe could not exist without intelligence. If you look at all the species, from the dogs to the monkeys to the cats, the humans, all of them, they all have very similar systems. They have lungs through which they breathe. They have reproductive organs. They have brains of different sizes. They have eyes, different capabilities, nostrils of different capabilities, but they all have these things. It's almost as if, if this was all random chance, we would see random things. Some would have no lungs. Some would have, some would have somehow made it some other way. But there's clearly a common force or common intelligence that has created everything that is out here. It could not be with such a lot of similarity otherwise. Or you tell me there's a whole bunch of other people, out there creating, like you have one kind of car and you have 20 car makers. Okay, maybe there's a bunch of other people making stuff, different kinds of bodies, different species of humans even. But there has to be some intelligence. Things don't come by accident. The nothing. If I pick up my iPhone, this didn't happen by accident. This was not the product of a big bang. This was the product of a bunch of people, thousands of people, in fact, with a lot of intelligence, putting together this product. So it's very important to understand that this is not a chance thing. It is very, very deliberate. Our human existence, the world that we live in, the planet, they're all part of a very deliberate a program, and which is why we're here. So it's important for us to find out, why am I here? Why did I get here? What's the point of all of this? So, anyways, lots to think about. Yes, exactly. You're welcome. We'll end.